The 10 biggest questions facing the quarterback position in fantasy football land ahead of the 2026 season. Feet. Rich Hribar, one of my great friends in real life, one of the best fantasy personalities and analysts you'll find as well. Matt Damon's alleged favorite fantasy football personality, the Swami of Konami, fake football meteorologist at Sharp Football Analysis. What's up, Reeves?
What's going on, brother, man? It's, I got to see you in person already once this summer. I can see you again in a couple weeks. We're post 4th of July. It feels like now the season here. Training camps are about to kick off. It feels like we're really moving downhill right now.
We were drafting with Lil Reeves as well, just,
Yeah.
slamming some best balls. I swear to God, Scouts Honor, no collusion going on, just some guys drinking some bourbon, having a good time in Kentucky. But is this about the time, Reeves, where you try to turn off that best ball brain again, the redraft?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was just talking with someone about this, Matt Harmon, on a show earlier week, and I was trying to get it out of my brain. We were talking about like Ricky Pearsall, and I was like, oh yeah, best ball, like there's this and this could happen. I'm like, well, in managed leagues, I might not ever start him. So like you're trying to get out of like that mentality with some of these guys of like, what does it mean if they're on your managed league roster, or they end up being like those roster cloggers, and like do you just go in a different direction where it's like you'd rather have just like a completely boom or bust player because then you can just move on and then use that roster spot. So the roster liquidation is a huge factor that is part of what we're going to change over and get our mindset into.
I've still been erring on like the paying more attention to the best ball ADP because who is really still drafting on Sleeper and ESPN? It's starting to get that way. And yeah, exactly. And I know at some point we will have to fully turn over that leaf, but that's kind of where I'm at, where if you do still hear me mentioning best ball, probably be more so from the ADP perspective, because I would like to think that eventually those ADPs probably be a little bit closer to what we'll actually end up seeing on the home sites. But Reeves, again, kind of quarterback week here on my new and improved channel. So if you guys want to, again, subscribe, do a like, whatever, or not, it's a free country. Always want to add that in. So, with everything going on. But yeah, I want to kind of go through what I thought was like 10 of the biggest questions that's going to be shaping the position. Because as much as we can say we love this guy, we love that guy, value comes into it, and just what you're seeing in the streets, you guys get the picture. So really, the start of every quarterback conversation has to start with the king of the quarterback position, Mr. Josh Allen. It's provocative, Reeves. I've seen people say, hey, just draft Josh Allen in round 3. Why not? He's Josh freaking Allen. Look what he's done. Do you really think it's worth it, though, in the year 2026 to be using a round 3, maybe early round 4 pick on Mr. Josh Allen?
It's always the dilemma, right? Like that fight of opportunity cost, and we're talking one quarterback leagues here, obviously. So superflex changes the dynamic here. I mean, this is a player at a onesie position that has just consistently been either first or second in overall quarterback scoring, literally in 6 straight years. So like you're adding points to your roster, and you're adding a lot of points to your roster, but then you're also foregoing running backs and wide receivers. If there ever was a situation where he finishes even as like the QB5 in overall points, like it ends up not being as worth the squeeze in terms of what you're giving up in opportunity cost. So it's like always the dilemma gamers have to face. I kind of, in years past, I'm usually never the guy that takes the quarterback first because you don't know when QB2 is coming off the board, right? Like that's always the thing. When you take Josh Allen, what if the QB2 doesn't go off the board for like 6 rounds? And you're like, oh,
it's humiliating.
Like, you're like, oh man, like, yeah. So it's like, I'm usually not that guy, but I will say more so this year than in years past. I have a little more FOMO leaving Josh Allen on the board this year. And like I said, I probably will end up less Josh Allen than I do because of that QB1 debate, but I do have a little more FOMO of him shadow roaming this year because I just think like there's all these avenues, I think, for the Bills to throw more. Obviously, Sean McDermott's gone, but how much by design was Joe Brady brought in to run the ball? How much influence was there? Does Pete Carmichael have them throw the football more too? Does the defense just take a step back with no Sean McDermott? It's still really good on paper. And then like they face all of these like really good opponents this year that can push them. And we know when the Buffalo Bills play in big games, this is where we see like Josh Allen. Usually it's the inverse, right? Like it's like you want quarterbacks as like high favorites and like these high team totals.
Sure.
Josh Allen's he's like almost an inverse correlation to that stuff where it's like, oh, they're not going to throw and he's not going to run in these games when they play the Miami Dolphins, right? But you're like, oh, even if they play like the Denver Broncos, like these good defenses, like they're going to get pushed and Josh Allen's going to take over these games. I mean, he has the most career games at 30 plus fantasy points in league history. of any quarterback ever. Last year he still did it. You know, he was number one in that category. And you look at like their schedule, you know, they face like Lions, Chargers, Rams. The Patriots are now a good team. They face twice the Chiefs, the Texans, the Bears, the Broncos, the Packers. In that fantasy playoff schedule, they face all good teams that are going to be pushing the Buffalo Bills. So I have a little more FOMO with him. Like, ah, man, feel a little more scarier if my opponent has Josh Allen this year than years past.
I go back to like the end of 2024, weeks 14 and 15, when they played the Rams and the Lions in back-to-back weeks. And it's just like, oh my God, you know, 80-plus points being scored everywhere. It is one of those things where I wonder if the Bills, like, is DJ Moore really going to bring this passing game, you know, up a notch? You know, is this maybe the point where, yeah, Josh and Joe Brady are still there and everything, but are they still going to be elite? But to your point, even if the team, as its overall success drops off a little bit and games are more competitive, that's kind of what we actually want with Josh Allen. Like, this dude is a demon in comeback mode. We just haven't usually seen that because the Bills have been really freaking good recently.
Yeah, I mean, you look at over the past 6 years, that stretch where he's been QB1 or QB2, literally in overall scoring. When the Bills are just a favorite by 3 or fewer points, or an underdog, just like where it said they're 3-point favorites or lower. I mean, he averages 25 fantasy points per game. And then in games decided by a field goal or less, he averages 24.8 fantasy points per game. Like, you want the Bills playing in like tight contested games, because that's just when they let Josh Allen be the deciding factor in the game.
Is there kind of like lines you have at different positions, maybe like a player where you say, okay, after this guy is gone, I'm looking to Josh Allen? Because a wide receiver, there is that point where it's like Neighbors or Olave. Maybe we don't feel amazing about it. And then we get into Jeremiah Love and Breece Hall, who, look, they're all consensus top 36 picks. I'm not saying they can't work out, but that's kind of where I've been with the tight ends and quarterbacks. Like, I need to hit a specific tier drop off at running back or wide receiver.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of that area. Like, I currently have Josh Allen valued as like a front end round 3 pick, and I do think once you hit like that gap, that little gap in wide receiver, where it's like kind of like right past like the AJ Brown, George Pickens, Devontae Smith area, you have like this little gap where I think it flattens out. And I think like really the strength of wide receiver this year is like that wide receiver, like 18 to 32 range. I always kind of want to have like 2 to 3 of those players in that range, if not more, because I just feel like that's a really strong pocket of receivers. And that's the running back spot where it kind of dries up is, like you said, Breece Hall is usually like that firewall guy for me. So I do think he does fit like in that bucket. Sometimes that's also where I start to entertain like Colston Loveland too, just because he's the other onesie position where I think there's a gap at wide receiver and running back. But if those guys are all gone, then I'm like, all right, I can maybe take this on and make up some ground. But like I said, you're always at the mercy though when you take Josh Allen first of Lamar Jackson or Drake Maye going like 4 rounds after.
I know, man. It is really ridiculous sometimes when that happens. And again, I've been talking in some other QB shows, and just we've been in these drafts where it's round 14 or 15. You're almost like pissed off at some of the quarterbacks that are still on the board. You're like, I took Josh Allen in round 3, but Justin Herbert just went round 14. What's going on here?
The other thing too that we didn't really talk about is you're starting this year at the first and second pick with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, who are like throwback kind of like league winning, like isolated players, right? Like these guys have like in their range of outcomes because of where they are at their point in their careers and what they do on the football field. Like these guys are like the prime Christian McCaffrey, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, maybe LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk type players. And when you already have one of those guys on your roster, you do tend to say like, man, I can add Josh Allen with Jahmyr Gibbs, and maybe in week 15 when I'm in the playoffs, like those two guys are just scoring 80 points, and like good luck to like my opponents.
Because if you're starting at 1 or 2, it comes back around to you, you're still going to have a pretty good wide receiver to get. And that could be right around the range where we kind of see that tier drop off anyway. And to your point, like, why do I need to worry about getting my second running back when I have Gibbs and Bijan? And then I can just go ahead and get a true game changer like Josh Allen. So good stuff there. I got him 30th overall. Again, this is more one quarterback redraft. Yeah. Super flex, though, the 101, as he has been for past years, for sure. Mm-hmm. Different ADP on different sites, I get it. Underdog, though, where a lot of people are drafting right now, we've seen the QB2 and QB7 actually go all within 16 picks of each other between rounds 5 and 6. We got Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, and Jalen Hurts. First question, Reeves, out of those, who scares you the most?
I think by default of just like using the actual definition of scary, it would be Jayden Daniels of the group. He's probably also the guy. He's like the Jesse Spano, not to stay on brand for Saved by the Bell memes, but like when she's taking the caffeine pill, she's like, "I'm so excited," and she's like, "I'm so scared." Like that's like what you have with Jayden Daniels, because we've seen the ceiling in year one, right? Like we know that from fantasy football and the way he scores fantasy points as an archetype of running plus passing, when those two things marry together, you have this high ceiling for fantasy football. But this is a player that, tends to play a little bit of reckless given his frame. He takes some hits that you're not comfortable with. And then just his surrounding core compared to the other guys that you brought up is the kind of the weakest link of the group, right? Like Washington is kind of like, they have an okay offensive line. They really just have Terry McLaurin, who's past 30 years old. The running back room is kind of a mess. And we have a first-time play caller in David Blau. So like there are all these question marks, I think, surrounding him, whereas that you could tear down more so than the other guys, and that makes him scary. But I will say, like, the marriage of this all coming together could be really great. I mean, this is a quarterback that's only taken 33 career NFL snaps under center. We've seen that David Blau is going to take like pages from the Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell playbook.
That always works. There. It's always 1-for-1, easy, no problem.
Just easy, gonna be fine. Yeah. But we saw this with Caleb with Ben Johnson last year. Like Caleb had never played under center before last year, and Ben Johnson's like, "Hey, you're gonna do it." So like this could all come together and be like more effective, because we've seen Cliff Kingsbury's like year 2 offenses consistently fail, and we had that big drop off from him last year. Even when Jayden Daniels played last year, he was not as an efficient of a quarterback, a passer. Touchdown rate dropped from 5.2 to 4.3%. Yards per pass attempt almost dropped a full yard. Completion percentage went down almost 10%. And I know he was banged up and there's other variables here, but like I said, when you're just looking at his whole layout compared to the other guys that you just mentioned, it's easier, I think, to find holes into where you have to thread the needle with him more so than the other guys.
I was getting to host with a co-host, I should say, just an FFPC draft last night. So high stakes rounds, people obviously putting a lot of money on the line. And the thought kind of hit me. I hadn't had this the rest of the offseason, but is there really a 4-round difference, or should there be, between Jayden Daniels and Jaxson Dart? Because I feel like we're just kind of making the same bet. It's not a good offense we believe in. We have one wide receiver, hopefully in Dart's case, that's going to be healthy when the year comes around. And we just want them to get there while they're running the football. So look, I believe Jayden Daniels is a better real-life quarterback. His 2024 beats Dart's 2025. But Daniels, he's like the one Konami code pure rusher, you could say, that we are actually being forced to buy at a high price.
Yeah, and it's because we've seen the ceiling already, the passing ceiling. Like we always talk about when you focus on these runners, or at least I have, on brand, is that when you get to put both of them together, like the old school Konami code, when I originally wrote this article in 2013, dating myself, was written under the premise of like, guys like Tim Tebow, who are perceived like a terrible real life quarterback, are good fantasy quarterbacks because it creates this high floor. It like made guys like Justin Fields usable. But when you're able to get the passing with the rushing, that's when you have like 2010 Michael Vick or 2015 Cam Newton, or like what Josh Allen's been doing, right? When you have the rushing plus a guy that can have almost 30 passing touchdowns, those guys are just hard to beat in fantasy football. And we know Jayden Daniels kind of has that in his range of outcomes. Because I do think as a thrower of the football, of the guys that have mobility, removing Lamar Jackson, like he's probably the closest thing that could be like Lamar Jackson, out of the guys that are the runners as we go down the draft board.
Could throw for 4,000, run for 800, and we would not be overly surprised about it. So totally get you there. But, I think that comp has some legs to guys that, it'd also be a lot cooler if you guys could take a little bit better care of your body. Please slide a little bit more often, Mr. Dart and Daniels too. Out of that group, though, Reeves, Lamar, Daniels, Burrow, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jalen Hurts. Who have you been drafting the most?
The guy I've been drafting kind of the most in that range is still Drake May. And I know like there's some schedule. You look at the schedule stuff. They were kind of a little bit of paper tigers last year, but this is still a year 2 quarterback that again runs, has the passing acumen, and the Patriots have gotten better. Like the Patriots are actually better on paper than they were a year ago.
They've kind of done like everything we wanted them to do after the end of last season quite well.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive line has a lot of flexibility now. I think even if Will Campbell struggles, they have flexibility to kind of adjust their offensive line. They took like a luxury pick on Caleb Lumu as their first round pick. He might not even start in year one because they have that flexibility. But if they need him in a pinch, they can slide guys like Elijah Vera Tucker has experience playing left tackle. Jared Wilson's now going to move back into center where he struggled as a rookie. Remember, they played just 2 rookies at the left side of their offensive line last season until Campbell got hurt late in the end of the season. So the offensive line's better. Stephon Diggs was really efficient last year, but he also was a part-time player. I mean, he only ran a route on 68% of the dropbacks. Adding A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs, like these guys are going to be on the field full-time while they're healthy. Like these guys aren't going to be like part-time players. So you even upgrade at receiver. So even I know I said we're trading some schedule stuff out and we probably trade a little bit of high-end deficiency because they're beating up on so many bad teams. You know what also though? I want my good players to shred bad teams. Like that's also a perk. Like I want you to show me, like when you play someone that I want you to exploit, absolutely drag them. And that's kind of what Drake Maye did. So the one thing I would love to see them swerve into is maybe a little more designed running stuff with Drake Maye, but I understand why they don't do it. But that's the only thing kind of, I think, like holding him back from like having like a Josh Allen like range of outcomes, because he's big enough for them to do it. He just doesn't get those designed runs in the scoring zone like Josh Allen does.
Still found his way to over 100 rush attempts last year, maybe without the kneels, and at the end of some of those blowouts, he's a little bit under, but certainly someone who is dangerous as a scrambler. And it's a good point with some of the game script stuff. Again, in an ideal world, we want it to be 45, 44, back and forth throughout the game. But in order to get that blowout game script in the first place, it does actually go hand in hand with scoring a lot of points, so you can be sitting on the bench and showing at the end of it. So great points all around, especially on the Patriots' improved offense, because I feel like the pushback for Drake Maye is just like, well, look how good his numbers were last year. How is he going to, lead the league in yards per attempt and completion rate again? He probably won't. But if the offense as a whole is better, if the game's arguably a little bit more competitive, and if, I don't know, Reeves, the guy that arguably was the MVP of the league in year 2, gets even better in year 3, like we could be looking at Drake Maye saying, like, why didn't we just fire him up as a top 3 quarterback?
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, he's been the guy. Still have him as QB2, and I understand it feels a little bit like Chasey, but I do think of the guys that like really performed highly at quarterback last year that maybe have some question marks for regression. He's the one where I'm like, even regression, like we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater here.
So it's Allen, Maye, then Lamar, I'm guessing, for you, top 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, Lamar's the one that scares me the most. I don't have a great reason, and it's terrifying. He's like a terrifying guy to not be all in on, because we've seen when he's on top of his game, he's one of the best fantasy quarterbacks we've ever seen. I try to balance what I think about offenses with what Vegas is saying with their implied preseason, lines and all that stuff. And they got the Ravens 3rd, which really surprises me. I don't know, man. DeClan Doyle, another one of these guys. Maybe he just fixes the offense. I don't know. I kind of thought Todd Monken did some good things with Lamar over the years. I know he was banged up last year. I got some cool stats that show you kind of difference in his miles per hour and, his rushing ability before and after the hamstring injury. But doesn't Lamar just kind of strike you as the quarterback where if we do see 85% of his usual rushing production, like that cliff could be coming in a hurry, is I guess my point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things here I think that are just in general, like maybe just like you're like, all right, let's see where this goes with Lamar Jackson. Well, one, you already brought up like Todd Monken, like how much better can like this Declan Doyle offense be better than like the height of the like the Todd Monken offense? And then there was something just a little mercurial about Lamar Jackson last year. And this is stuff like we don't know, we can't quantify, but like there definitely was clearly a schism between him, Harbaugh, probably,
every media session, bro.
And, like he wasn't practicing at the end of the year. I know he was banged up, but like he was really kind of like odd in his behavior. And like the franchise can get out of his contract after this year. Like it's kind of like a weird fulcrum point of his career because the regime is changing over. And like, what if they're just like, there's like kind of a parting of the ways here where he's like, I'm not happy involved. There's just like weird stuff that like we don't really know under the hood that last year I was like, what's really going on here? And we'll maybe never know the truth of what actually was happening between all of that. But there is some of that at least still lingering on. It's like, well, what if this doesn't work? Like, what if they're just not a successful team? Because I think the Ravens are definitely getting a lot of cachet built in them for like what they've done the previous decade versus kind of where their roster currently is. I mean, this is a team that has had a ton of turnover. They lost a ton of snaps played on offense and defense from this year and last year. And they look like a good team. They've got a favorable schedule, all those things. So not expecting them to bottom out. But like, what if they're just not bouncing back and they're not as successful and there is some kind of like just pushing of like, fighting of the new regime of like who's really in charge, who's the alpha here, who's the captain, who's
and the and the Lamar gravity effect. I mean, we've seen that over the years with his ability to avoid sacks and also just increase Henry and Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram, get all these running backs doing their thing, getting these runways before they even have to deal with contact. So again, if we are taking just 1 or 2 steps away from Lamar, could be a kind of a waterfall effect on the rest of the group.
And
I don't think the Ravens are going to be. They are old. Look at them, Reeves. They're old.
Yeah, I mean, the offense outside of Zay Flowers, like it's an old offense. We'll talk about it
and
too,
Rashad
because
Bateman.
Not Rashad Bateman. A lot of people probably think Rashad Bateman's 30, but he's not.
God, it's a sickness. It's a sickness, Reeves. I cannot quit Rashad Bateman. I'm not going to quit Rashad Bateman. For full, I guess, just telling you guys who I'm drafting. I'm drafting Caleb Williams a lot, and I'm sure we'll talk about him more another time. I want to talk about this next tier of guys, Reeves, because it's like this fun. I'm a cheaper version of a more expensive quarterback group. And
right.
I've, been doing this over the years where I'm like, why draft this dude in round 3 when you can get this dude in round 6? And one of the lessons I've learned with that, though, is like, okay, that's cool. And it is like a nice reason for the guy in round 6. Doesn't necessarily mean the guy in round 3 won't be awesome in his own right. Now. So something to keep in mind there. That said, we have Dak Prescott kind of going next in ADP. I think you can make a good case that he is just, again, a cheaper version of Joe Burrow. There's Justin Herbert, again, a cheaper version of Drake Maye. Trevor Lawrence, a cheaper version of Caleb Williams, looking at what they can do running the ball, second-year Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, all that sorts of stuff. Home league squad, Reeves. Now, you described to me your home league. I know you guys got contracts and a bunch of wild shit going on, which I love, and it speaks to your degeneracy as a fantasy football player. So I love that. But if you have another home league team, which is a traditional redraft, you can only have one of these guys, Dak, Herbert, Lawrence. Who do you want to put your chip on?
Well, I think just bar none, the best quarterback in terms of where he's getting drafted and like home leagues and sites that you're on now that are non like best ball, even on best ball, I think he's a really good value. But if you look at like ADP on like where ESPN Yahoo is, to me, Justin Herbert is the guy that just stands out to me.
Right answer.
And I know that there is also a pocket of people that will roll their eyes at that because they're like, there's just like a contingency of people that are like, oh, never is going to happen for the Chargers. Then we're going to have Justin
Captain
Herbert.
if.
Like, yeah, I get it, but. Because we're going to make this some excuses again. I get but he was the QB2 in fantasy points before Joel got hurt. So like we've already seen like the upside there. He was hit on 129 dropbacks last year, the most in the league. The Chargers starting offensive line, and this is already accounting for Rashawn Slater being out for the year. Their top 5 offensive linemen were only on the field together for 16% of their offensive snaps. It was by far the lowest rate in the NFL. You're obviously getting Slater and Alt back. You upgrade in center, I believe, in Tyler Biadasz. And then the guards, I think, are still a question mark. But you do have Cole Strange, who comes over with Mike McDaniel. And that's kind of the lead, right? Is that the coaching upgrade here. This is an offensive system. When you look at the Shanahan coaching tree, like these guys have made wine out of water in Jimmy Garoppolo, like the Tua Tagovailoa, like just inferior talent down the board.
Nick
guys
Mullins
like Nick
averaging
Mullins,
8 yards per attempt. Yeah.
But even guys like Brian Greasy, Matt Schaub, Kirk Cousins, these are guys who threw for like 4,000 plus yards, flirted with 30 passing yards. Anytime the system has had a quarterback with actual talent, like these guys have gone bonkers, man. Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs with Mike LaFleur. Matt Ryan won an MVP with Kyle Shanahan. Like this is like you might have to go back to actual peak Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, to have a quarterback that has Herbert's skill set, like he's like modern John Elway. They've got talent all over the place. And just this addition of Mike McDaniel, like he's just going to be, I think the efficiency is going to be so high for Justin Herbert. And you still get a little bit of rushing. It's going to come down because he's not have to scramble as much. His scramble rate was 2% higher than it ever had been in a year before last year. But just Mike McDaniel's, think about this. Tua Tagovailoa every year of the past 4 years, and we know where Tua's career is at right now.
Oh, yeah.
He had a higher touchdown rate than 4.8% every year. He had a higher touchdown rate than Patrick Mahomes the last 3 years, every single season. So like, I mean, anytime like this system has a quarterback with any type of ability to like has actual talent, like, man, I want to be in on that because I feel like the ceiling is so high.
And this dude, I'm with you. I don't think he's going to be running the same amount this season or anything, but he ran for 498 yards, even with breaking his hand down the stretch, still stiff arming dudes. He's got that dog in him. He threw for 5,000 freaking yards in his second year, man. It's been a little bit. I understand that. It's not like Herbert's old, though. We have multiple seasons of 22 plus fantasy point upside, but I feel like because he was kind of doing it in the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts averaging 23, 24, maybe he didn't get the same amount of credit as he would have otherwise. So I am 100% with you. You answered the opinionated question correctly, Reeves, so I'm proud of you there. The one really cool thing you mentioned, though, was that I think you said 16% of the Chargers snaps last year actually had their 5 central starting offensive linemen. That's crazy, man. I know you look at this like fairly often and annually in the offseason. Is that like one of the lowest marks you've ever seen?
I've been doing it for the past 6 years, and I post them. They're on my Twitter and stuff too. And yeah, that one is one. I think it's the second lowest. I think the Saints had a year in there that was pretty low. The Saints have also been a team that just like consistently. Everyone talks about the Chargers offensive line and always being cursed. The Saints are the only team the past 3 years that are like bottom 6 every year. Like they just haven't been able to keep their offensive line intact, and the offensive line continuity is big because it's a weak link position. And when you're missing both your starting tackles, when there's the caliber of Alton Slater, it's just hard to overcome as an offense. I mean, we saw even like guys like, look what happened to Saquon last year with like the offensive line situation that they had compared to what it was the year prior. We always talk about Trent Williams when he's in and out of the lineups. And the Green Bay Packers were another team last year where they just were completely snake bit the entire year, and it kind of derailed them. So yeah, I always look at that kind of stuff.
If someone wanted to push back on Herbert, I'm guessing their main cause for concern would be, all right, well, McDaniel, Harbaugh, they got to still what should be a good defense. I mean, what's going to stop them from just running the ball a lot? Also, Ladd, QJ, we have reasons to like them, but let's face it, that's not like a top 10 wide receiver core in the league. Still not enough to get you off Herbert.
Right. No, I mean, at his cost, like I said, I'm always in on cost. Like he's the guy I think that's the most undervalued. I think, this number of names you brought up here, like I don't really have a ton of pushback on any of those guys. I'm very, very interested to see if there's any changes based on the improvements that both Dallas and Cincinnati have made on defense, particularly more, I think, Cincinnati than Dallas, because I think Dallas has made their improvements largely in run defense. But the Bengals already had, I think, a better pass defense than people realized. It's just that they could not stop the run or rush the passer last year, and they really have put a real big emphasis on the way they've allocated their resources this offseason, getting Maye, Dexter Lawrence, Jonathan Allen in the middle, beef up front, Cassius Howell, see what they get out of him as an edge rusher. But I think people don't realize how good DJ Turner is, and like their pass defense is underrated. So I'm very interested to see if like they're a team that they play more balanced football this year than people expect, because I don't know if anyone else knows this. Cincinnati Bengals right now are favored in 15 games. They're number 2 behind the Rams. They're number 2 behind the Rams. Like they ran into like a sneaky schedule. I remember everyone last year was talking about the 49ers, how their schedule is going to flip. That's where the Bengals are this year. So I'm very interested, to see if there's a little more balance from them this year than we have had in previous years. But I still love Joe Burrow, I love Jamar Chase, and I love T. Higgins. I'm just curious to see like if we don't see the full 650, pass completions,
And that, I mean, we're a couple years removed too from like everyone in that division being at least 9-8. Browns not expecting too much from them. We just talked about maybe some concerns with the Ravens, and the Steelers are led by a 42-year-old, ayahuasca addicted dude at this point. So big point here though is at cost. And again, Reeves, it's July 8th as we're recording this, so I'm not gonna just freaking ram ESPN sleeper ADPs down everyone's throat. Pause. Justin Herbert though, pick 123 on ESPN right now, man. Like there's a gap between Herbert and then it goes to Jared Goff at pick 152. It's those sorts of values, man, that have me kind of declining to let someone else draft Josh Allen. Not because Josh Allen's not awesome, but my God, we can get Herbert that late potentially.
Yeah, that's what I think is what I look at is like if I'm really waiting and loading up my team, I can still get him as like kind of the head pin.
Reeves, the best quarterback not named Tom Brady of the last 10 plus years, cheapest he's ever been in Fantasyland. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I think there's a reason for it. I think it's kind of warranted, and how long are we going to chase this? Because it feels like that's the argument that people are holding for Patrick Mahomes is cheapest he's ever been, but he keeps getting worse, and he's coming off of an ACL. I mean, you look at this. This isn't just 1 year. This is the past 3 years. Patrick Mahomes, 17th in the NFL in completion rate. 23rd in yards per pass attempt, 20th in touchdown rate. I already brought up the Tua stat. 20th in interception rate. The one thing that held him up last year was he was running around, and we just can't count on that, coming off of the ACL. The other thing, too, is that the infrastructure, and I probably would have done this, too, if I was building the Kansas City Chiefs. When you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, it's easy to build your roster with a little bit of hubris, and I think that happened to the Kansas City Chiefs, particularly in their wide receiver room. Part of the reason teams play them differently, and the Chiefs were initially at the forefront of this defensive meta, where they started to see all the too high stuff, right? And that the stuff that kind of led to where we are now in the Fangio style defenses. But once Tyreek Hill left, that has all changed. They actually see one of the highest man coverage rates. Teams don't respect their receiver room. Yeah. And, when your lead wide receiver is a Deebo Samuel adjacent type player, teams don't respect him getting open. When your best wide receiver on the perimeter is a 165-pound receiver that if you put hands on him, you're knocking out and it says against man coverage last year, Patrick Mahomes 26th in quarterback rating, 21st in completion rate, 28th in yards per pass. Could you imagine telling yourself 10 years ago, we're just going to line him and play man coverage against Patrick Mahomes? Oh my God. Travis Kelce's 37. And the only real kind of change they've made to their offense is this offseason, I guess, not counting Eric Bieniemy coming back, is the Kenneth Walker edition. And how does that, really raise the tide of Patrick Mahomes from a fantasy football stance? The one area you could say is maybe they get under center and play more play action, but him coming off of this knee injury, are you having him turn his back to the defense and playing under center more? I find that hard to believe too. So I understand Patrick Mahomes, there's a little bit of a boogeyman. You're letting Patrick Mahomes go as cheap as he can, but I think paired with this injury, his surrounding offensive talent, it's warranted.
And there's just not enough change, to your point, to be all right, well, why is it going to be different? Why are we get back to partying like it's 2022? Okay, Eric Bieniemy's back, but I get nervous with these play callers, man, when they go somewhere else and nothing good happens and then they come back home. It's exactly what happened with Matt Nagy when he left the Bears and came back to Kansas City.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't, Andy Reid is going to go into the Hall of Fame easily, but when you look at what the Chiefs have done to counter what teams are doing against them this past 2 years, it's a top-down problem. They're one of these teams they're kind of creating their own paper bag to try to punch out of. They're not pushing the easy buttons in the offense, and it sounds crazy to say, right? This is a team that's coached by Andy Reid and has Patrick Mahomes, and they've had no answers for 3 years.
Is it because they spent half their practice time just practicing the bullshit plays from inside the 5-yard line?
Ring around the rosy and stuff. I think we will always just look back though at that intersection of just Mahomes on the ascension, playing with peak Tyreek Hill, apex Travis Kelce, and it was such a marriage. Remember, this happened with Tom Brady at the end of the Patriots run, right? This isn't necessarily me tearing down Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is still if I was building an NFL franchise, he would probably be the first pick still. But at the end of the Tom Brady New England Patriots, when they finally divorced, the Patriots were just void of talent on offense, and Tom Brady could no longer carry them. That's kind of what we've been with Patrick Mahomes. He's had to do so much, and it's just not successful. But the second Brady got back with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and they brought Gronk back, but Brady balled. It was. I think we eventually will see Patrick Mahomes be great again. But I think when you look at what the Chiefs have on paper still right now, and then him plus this injury. And then we're going to talk about still the surrounding pocket of quarterbacks that go around him. I totally just understand why he's here.
Again, last year, got back over that 20 fantasy points per game mark, but as Reeb said, almost entirely due to rushing. We actually did not see his fantasy points per game from passing change at all relative to the last 2 seasons. So wide receiver room right now. Rashee Rice, again, very, very limited receiver outside of what he can do in the short, intermediate, not even intermediate, just the short areas of the field. Great after the catch. I get it. Xavier Worthy, maybe we can see him get back to some of the good second half of his rookie year stuff, not after, breaking his collarbone the 4th play of the year. That is a guess. Tyquan Thornton did good things, but I want Tyquan to be my, wide receiver 4 field stretching specialist. We need someone to work in the intermediate areas of the field. The Chiefs are a smart organization, Reeves. Stephon Diggs, would that change anything for you here? It seems like a marriage that has to happen.
That would be they just need a guy where it's 3rd and 8 in like a guy that can just beat coverage. Like they just don't have one of those guys. Kelsey's their closest thing to it in terms of route running, and it's just not fair to him at age 37 that he like that burden falls on him. Diggs, I think, would be a great fit for Mahomes because he's great at like the freelance stuff and he still shown last year can just get open. So that's a guy they need. I mean, we were just
Keenan,
waiting,
bro.
Yeah, I don't know if Keenan Allen is the one.
Is there one you would trade for, man? Every single time we ask this question, I go to Kayshon Boutte, regardless of the team. I think that dude's a baller.
I mean, I don't know, like hypothetical, like who's even available right now. I just think the guys are. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in season, if we get to middle of the season and they are the team that brings Tyreek Hill back, like if he's if he's ready to play. It's just we just don't know. I don't think we're going to see him. If we see Tyreek at all, it won't be until the season, and because that's when he's going to be ready to come back. And then 2, you might have some movement on some offenses based on injuries, but I wouldn't be surprised. And the Chiefs have no problem like bringing like those types of off-field guys back. So like that Diggs makes sense too, because if anyone's going to take Diggs, the only reason he's available is because off the field he's a knucklehead. Right. Like the Chiefs have shown they don't care. So.
You know a trade that would make my financial advisor and Mrs. Hartitz very happy, Reeves? Judy. Just saying. Just throwing it out there. All right. You're in your home league draft again. I like to put people in the spot because I know, Reeves, you're in a million drafts and everything. You're going to get exposure to some of these guys, but I just hate when us fantasy alleged experts are like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of in on them, but, I'll sprinkle in some exposure, whatever. I want to hear who you are circling between Brock Purdy, Jaxson Dart, Bo Nix, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray. Again, this is that next crop of quarterbacks where if you are waiting in your home leagues, you're probably going to have a decent chance to pick one of these guys. Who would you be circling?
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 guys for me, and it's kind of where I'm at in the draft. Do I feel like I need to get – I feel really strong. Do I just want to add a quarterback, or do I want to keep pushing quarterback down because I just really like some other positional players? I'm just like, I don't want my other league mates to have these guys, right? Because these guys all go in that range, right, where you're like, oh – and this is just me using hypothetical. It's not me saying – but like let's say you like really like Matthew Golden, right? And like you're like, I already have 4 good wide receivers, but I don't want Jim or Susie to have Matthew Golden because I'm just going to add him to my roster and have him. So I'll just wait on quarterback again because I know I like this other guy down the line. So if I'm just taking a quarterback, Brock Purdy still would be the guy. Like just completely gets dunked on. Like again, Shanahan system, surrounding core is really good. They are old too. This is another old surrounding core, but it's still Mike Evans, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Ricky Pearsall. In a Kyle Shanahan offense. Like this is still a really good group. I'm really confident in his production. He's been top 10 in points per game each of the last 3 years. And then if I'm waiting, it's this for the same reason. It's just the level of confidence. It's Jared Goff, another guy gets respected, man. This is a guy, he's the only quarterback to have 30 or more passing touchdowns each of the past 3 years. Since 2022, he's the most passing touchdowns in the NFL. And a lot of people have already told you about Jahmyr Gibbs and like his schedule, right? Well, Jared Goff, man, the Lions, I mean, they play 4 outdoor games during the fantasy regular season. Now, granted, one is the fantasy championship in Chicago, but
we'll worry about that later.
We'll worry about that in week 17. We're there. The outdoor games that they face before that are week 2 in Buffalo, so it's no temperature concerns and a potential shootout. Week 4 against the Panthers, no, like that's not great. It's not there's no weather concerns, but it's like not anything you're super excited about. And then week 9 in Miami, who you're not scared about at any level. Goff averages 20 points per game in indoor games, since he joined the Lions. They opened the year with games against the Saints, the Bills, the Jets, the Panthers, Cardinals. Like you're confident to stream. Like those are all startable games where you're going to be feeling pretty good about the Lions scoring points. So if I'm really waiting at quarterback, like you really could get him at like just extremely favorable cost, and I'm totally confident opening the year with him as my quarterback, and then we'll calibrate things as things go.
Beaten ADP 4 straight years. Hasn't been priced like he's QB 16 on most sites this year. That's the most expensive he's been, even though he's just been crushing it, dude. 3 straight seasons with at least 4,500 passing yards. The rest of the NFL combined has only 6. So I'm with you, man. I have an article going up on rotowire.com. You guys can all check it out if you feel like it this week, where I was just looking at, all right, like who are my favorite late round quarterbacks outside the top 120 picks, round 11 and on. I didn't think I'd be writing about Jared Goff, Reeves, but I was like, oh my God, look at this dude. I mentioned it, outside the top 150 on ESPN, outside the top 120 on Sleeper. Jared Goff, the late round quarterback of 2026, man. Vegas has this offense number one in scoring. The one pushback I think people have had is like, well, what's Drew Petzing going to do there? I'm actually feeling okay about it, man. We saw what he did with Jacoby last year. He always had a good run game going on with Arizona, which I'm guessing is kind of a big reason they wanted him to come, hopefully spruce up that O-line. But regardless, guys, even if you don't care what I have to say about the real-life intricacies of Drew Petzing, listen to some of the smarter dudes in our industry, Ben Solak, Nate Tice. They love the marriage between Drew Petzing and Jared Goff, and I'm inclined to believe them, Reeves.
I mean, even if you don't even love Drew Petzing, like they fired their offensive coordinator in the middle of the year last year. Like we already,
that's true.
We already saw.
We've seen the worst case scenario. Yeah,
he's attached to 2 first-round picks, a tight end who goes as a tight end 1, and like a high upside wide receiver in Jameson Williams. He's got Greg Dortch, baby. He's got Greg Dortch.
Light the torch. Light the torch. We buried the lead, Reeves. What are we doing here? So, absolutely love it. Jared Goff, the late round quarterback of 2026. Brock Purdy should be going earlier. I'm with you, though. Purdy over Goff with that. I will say, again, I mentioned the FFPC draft I was watching last night. Jaxson Dart did go like QB 15. That's nice because when he's going QB 8, QB 9, I'm out on that. I do not want to be trying to, again, chase him up the ranks that much. But Dart is interesting that deep because as we get into kind of the next question, again, home leagues at this point, you're probably going to have your quarterback. And I get that's the reason why Goff's ADP is as low as it is. A lot of times, if you're getting an early guy, you don't even need a second quarterback. You can worry about the waiver wire later. But looking at the next group of guys, we have Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis, CJ Stroud, and Sam Darnold. Let's say Dart and Kyler kind of slide into that group. I mean, again, Reeves, the Swami Okonami right here, like you've been preaching this message for a long, long time. This seems like the first year in a minute, dude, that we can actually draft these high volume dual threat quarterbacks at a good discount.
Yeah, and like I said, I just think, gamers will always calibrate on like what has recently happened. And I think a couple of the non-passers got pushed up the boards a little too highly in recent years, like Justin Fields and rookie year Anthony Richardson. And those guys always came with the question marks of passing, but they were kind of overdrafted because of like the what if this comes together. I would even include Kyler like in recent years as part of that group. He's kind of been overdrafted a little bit too. Everyone loves to bring up the stat about like Kyler finishing as like a QB1 in points per game, but it's like literally like back end QB1 stuff, and like on a weekly basis, he's never like really delivered like high scoring weeks that like help you win. So when you don't get that marriage, those guys tend to feel like a little bit of a letdown. So I think that's why like people look at Dart and they're like, all right, if Neighbors is going to be hurt, they hired, Greg Roman and Matt Nagy and John Harbaugh.
Brian
like
Callahan's there too. Damn it, man.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, really? You needed to add him too? We couldn't have just stopped with Nagy?
Yeah, and the offensive line's good. They take it. It's crazy because the Giants haven't had but the offensive line actually looks really good on paper. They signed Patrick Ricard. Like they're telling you they want to run the football a lot. But Dart didn't have Neighbors last year when he was also kind of doing this stuff. So, and he was consistently delivering fantasy points. I think if he's definitely available in this range, I'm just taking him because of where the floor and the upside can lie. Because we saw it last year, right? Like, he was already he had 3 top 3 scoring weeks. He had 5 top 6 scoring weeks. He had 8 top 10 scoring weeks. So like that's still like something I want to latch on to if gamers are kicking that down the board.
I think he's good, man. I was getting some, heat online when I said I would take Jaxson Dart over Cam Ward in a redraft. I think Cam Ward's good too. I think both these guys, man, they have that special tool that you can't tease, that ability to improvise, create off script, avoid the sack, and still have the arm talent to get the ball downfield. Ward's maybe not quite as mobile as Dart, but he's got a better arm. If you like Ward over Dart, I'm not going to sit here and call you crazy or anything like that. But I do think, man, that Dart is also like independent because like you mentioned some of the busts, Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, like these are guys who we can safely say to this point in their career have not been good real life quarterbacks. I think Dart could be great.
Yeah, I think that, especially just year one, the incompletion of just saying like this guy was literally throwing to Wando Robinson and Darius Slayton, his partner in crime and his tag team partner goes down in the middle of the year in Cam Scattaboo. They're running this, hodgepodge of Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. His head coach gets fired in the middle of the year. Like there's just for him to even come out like above water in that situation, I think is a testament that like there's probably something here that that we could build.
We had the one Vikings game where I went, Brian Flores does that to all, rookie quarterbacks. And the fact
he's made
a disaster. Floor was so high out there, man. So only other guy I wanted to ask you about in this tier, Baker Mayfield, man. I love the work that Ryan Heath's been doing over at Fantasy Points, and I believe it was him who coined the McShanahan term, where when we're looking at late round quarterbacks, we want the Sean McVay or the Kyle Shanahan tree, and he threw Ben Johnson in there as well. Look, I do not think Zach Robinson is on the same level as someone like Mike McDaniel or anything like that, okay? But he does come from that tree, and you can look at the Atlanta Falcons offenses over the years. It wasn't like he was exactly given, this just diamond core and everything at quarterback, at least you could say. So Baker Mayfield, unironically, get an MVP chance in week 6. Maybe it was Tez Johnson, whoever you were rooting for. But like the dude was on fire in 2023 and 2024. He led the league in passing touchdowns. He averaged north of 20 fantasy points per game in 2024. I say all that because I can see the allure for Baker in 2026. But if I also zoom out and I look at his whole career, 2024 kind of looks like the outlier.
Yeah, he's still a guy that I think where he's going represents a favorable outcome, because similar to like Jared Goff, there's just like all this surrounding reasons to feel really good about him. I mean, last year, it's easy to like write a hall past what happened last year. I mean, he had ankle, knee, oblique, shoulder injuries over the course of the year. He still never missed a game. Like dude just kept playing. Also, their offensive line, Tristan Wirfs missed 5 games. Luke Goedeke missed 6 games. Ben Bredesen missed 6 games. Cody Mauch got injured in week 2 and missed the rest of the season. The only offensive lineman to play in every game was center Graham Barton. You brought up Zach Robinson, but the one thing Zach Robinson does is he runs an offense that's very similar to the one in 24 and 24 that Liam Cohen runs. In fact, they were both there with the Rams when Baker made that pit stop with the Rams. So I'm a little more bullish on that, on Zach Robinson being able to just put Baker in place. The receiving room is still something. I know Mike Evans is gone, but like as a whole, as a collective, we've got dudes. Yeah. Like as in terms of depth, you feel good about. And the other thing I really like about this is I think this team's going to play in potentially like high scoring pass scripts, because I don't know how good their run game is going to be. With Bucky Irving and Kenneth Gainwell, it wasn't good last year. I talked the offensive line, so it can be better, but I just don't know how strongly I feel about it. I don't know how bullish I am in it being like awesome. And the other thing is their secondary looks really bad and their front 7 looks awesome. So what does that mean? We're stopping the run. The Lions had a few teams like this, especially early in Goff's career, where like you couldn't run on them, and you're forcing teams to throw against the weakest part of your defense, like inviting teams to attack you where you're weakest. And this Bucs team has that like in spades, because Todd Bowles with this front 7, dude, he's going to be bringing so much heat and pressure. But then they lost Jamel Dean. Zion McCollum is literally like their best cornerback right now. They look real weak at cornerback. So it's like, man, this is a team that could be in some passing scripts, and we can be in some fun game states, because you're not going to be able to run this Bucs team while it's healthy. This Bucs front 7 looks woo.
It's kind of how they've been almost the entire time Vita Vea has been there. Like, just good luck moving that mountain of a man in the middle. And then accordingly, like, that's really what we want, guys. Again, it's those defenses that are so good against the run that they funnel all the production through the air.
Yeah.
If you don't have the cornerbacks to stand up, could be some big things. So love that shout out, because again, just trying to go through these late round quarterbacks. Yes, Jared Goff would be the preference. If Dart's fallen that far, then okay, absolutely. Otherwise, man, I've been toying around with the idea of the Boomer Sooner late round strategy. We get Kyler, we get Baker. I'm probably a little more optimistic that maybe Kyler could figure it out in Minnesota and be that next great reclamation project. But I realize that there could be a short leash and things could go south. So if I'm taking Kyler, I would want another quarterback. And I feel like Baker at the price and the upside, man, I do prefer Baker over Love, over Shuck, over Stroud, over Darnold, and some of these other guys.
Yeah, and Kyler is interesting, but I'm in on Kyler because I think there's negatives, right? I do. I like his marriage in the Kevin O'Connell scheme. I think is an interesting fit, because this is a guy that hasn't thrown in rhythm over the middle of the field like at all at any point of his career. And I hate to like just say he's too small, but like there is a kind of a corollary in this era where defenses are playing more shell coverage. Teams are throwing you to throw short and over the middle of the field now. That's like way defenses are designed, and like that's It's hard. It's been a bugaboo for Kyler because he's small. He's a small guy. And so, Kevin O'Connell's always run like an under center passing game. A big hindrance for him last year was, JJ McCarthy being able to play on time over the middle of the field as well. And this was a guy that played in like a run first college offense, and like had those issues in the NFL. So those are question marks, but I think Kyler is priced at a point where if he fails, you just throw him back. It's fine. Like he's not costing you a lot here. And then the pros are really high. Obviously, he's attached to Justin Jefferson. They have our number 1 ranked passing schedule of the season. The fantasy playoffs, if you get there with Kyler, he faces the Lions, the Commanders, and the Jets. Like, if you're there, like that's like you feel really good about that if he's still playing at that point and he was that good enough to get to that point of the year. So like I understand the negatives, and I've written a lot about the negatives about him. But I think if he's still priced in this range, that is completely palatable to just not care really about the teardowns, because if you get him, you just move on to the Baker or the Jordan Love or the other guy that's available in your 1 QB league, whether it be Tyler Shuck or Malik Willis. His prices, I think, has a lot of that priced in right now.
And this the running backs. Again, guys, pick 143 on Sleeper right now. Pick 157 on ESPN. That's basically free. Like, we're going to be talking about like Braylon Allen, Cooper Kupp, just guys who you're never going to be feeling good about. Love that shout on Kyler. Last few questions, Reeves. Give me a meaningful take about one of these following guys. The floor is yours. Cam Ward, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young. Can be good or bad.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm terrified of the Colts this year. In general. Well, because last time we saw he's not only had an Achilles injury, he had the right foot Achilles, the plant leg. And, especially because you just gave $1 zillion to Alec Pierce, who is kind of only one at this point, like on vertically and outside. And if like that's hindering Daniel Jones's throws, because there's a trickle down here, right? With the Colts. Like if Daniel Jones isn't playing as well as he was at the start of last year, like that also ties into like Jonathan Taylor being a first round pick. Like we've seen it, Jonathan Taylor has been the most like volatile running back in terms of is his team winning or losing and what are you getting for fantasy in those games. And he's the number 1 running back in his career in points scored per game and PPR points too, not even like half point PPR games, like in points per game and wins. And then he's the RB15 in losses since he entered the NFL. Last year, he averaged 32 points per game in Colts wins. And even if you remove all the games that Daniel Jones missed, in the 4 games that Daniel Jones lost, he was the RB20 or lower in all those games too. Wow. So like Jonathan Taylor is very contingent on Daniel Jones playing well. Like if Daniel Jones doesn't play well, I feel like this is a complete house of cards, like for a lot of people for fantasy football. Like Alec Pierce is going down with the ship. Jonathan Taylor could be going down for the ship. Maybe Josh Downs lives because that's just he's getting the shorter game, and Tyler Warren can survive that way. But it's very scary, man. Cam Ward would just be like you just trying to say like the Caleb Williams effect, right? His rookie year was very adjacent to Caleb Williams. Took a ton of sacks, ton of negative plays, had a terrible offensive line. Coach got fired middle of the season. All these things have been improved except for maybe your interior offensive line, but you get Carnell Tate with pick 4. You add Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'm not going to try to tell anyone that like Wan'Dale Robinson's some world-beating player.
Though.
It's an upgrade of a player, and it's a player I think it's going to help them on third downs, because one of the areas that Cam Ward really struggled was the converting third downs on those third downs. So he definitely helps them there, because Wan'Dale Robinson has been top 5 each of the past 2 years in third down target share. So he's a guy where it's like, all right, this could be a jump like a Caleb Williams. Like I don't think Cam Ward makes a jump to like win you leagues, but I think if like you're in superflex leagues and 2 QB leagues, he's a guy that represents a lot of value at the bottom. I will say if you want anything on Bryce Young, Matt, it won't be my pitch. I'll just promote Matt Harmon's pitch that I did a show with him, is that he believes that the transition from Dave Canales to Brad Idzik and the Jalen Coker extension, you're a big Coke head, adding Chris Brazzell, that they're finally going to just like play spread offense and not in these condensed sets that have like, because Bryce Young just he's not meant to be played in these condensed sets. No. The only time he's given us anything over his rookie contract, they're kind of when they have to like open things up and play, like he did kind of in college a little bit. So that's what you're hoping you have happened there.
Man, I'd love to see it work out. NFL is more fun with more good quarterbacks. It's just been such a freaking slog trying to get even 3,000 passing yards with Bryce.
He threw for 200 yards 4 times last year.
God. It's so bad. And again, it's one of those things where same thing with Cam Ward. And Cam Ward's, only rookie year, even worse surrounding cast and everything. But guys, like you see the videos I put on Twitter, it's 2 minutes of highlights. All right. You can do that with every quarterback. All right. You can build your own propaganda for these guys. And look, Bryce Young and Cam Ward are top 30 quarterbacks on this planet. All right. You're going to have great moments. But when every single stat we care about, Reeves, tells us that they're really bad, I have a hard time completely turning away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least like I will say the highs of Cam Ward still, like it's like the Caleb effect, right? Because Caleb still statistically had like a lot of issues in year 2. He made a lot of growth, and you're hoping there's just continued growth, right? Like that's just what you're looking for Cam Ward now, is to show us that like he can get out of the basement and into like maybe the just like middle of the pack and some of this stuff.
You got some dynasty squads out there, Reeves. I have a handful myself, and I am lucky enough. I mean, kind of lucky. He's QB 22 or whatever. But I had Malik Willis on almost all my dynasty teams because last year at a certain point, I was just like, all right, he's hitting free agency. He has shown some good things. Maybe we'll find a way to get a bag. Happened to happen. Don't ask me about all my other takes, but we hit one at least. So do you think there is a Malik Willis type of backup quarterback this year that actually could all of a sudden be in the conversation as this top 20 fantasy signal caller in 2027? And why isn't Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, he would be the one for fantasy football. You'd at least have to keep the lights on, right? Like you'd at least have to keep the lights on for him, just because of the same thing like Malik Willis, right? Because Malik Willis, when he went to the Green Bay Packers, he had no draft capital, so like you really thought it was donezo. Like you were like, oh, this is a 3rd round pick. They've already moved on. Like this is over. Like, and he was able to reclaim stuff. Like Anthony Richardson is still gigantically big and fast as a human being, and I guarantee you the Colts weren't the only team that was going to probably overdraft him. So I guarantee
he's
there's someone
arguably
out there,
the most athletic quarterback ever. Like, we're using the relative athletic scores and stuff. Like, that's what we're dealing with. Not just pretty big and fast, like the biggest and fastest.
So I do guarantee if he's available on the open market, there's going to be someone that is going to say, yes, I can do something with this or make this happen, and he will have another lifeline. I do think his passing, though, is such a detriment that, like, it's his passing just is so rough. Like, it's Tim T. His like comps of like all things, like it's like literally like he looks like Tim Tebow. Like it's like, oh shit, like, it's just so
still
terrible.
Only 24, but God, for a guy we're coming out of Florida, the whole calling card was like he just needs more reps. Hasn't been able to get that. Freaking just breaking his orbital with the band stretching last year. Like, my God, what a freaking ridiculous first 3 years to the Anthony Richardson experience. We got Mac Jones out there as well.
All the other guys, I think there's all those bad guys. I mean, the 2 Steelers guys, like, I mean, if you're in dynasty leagues, I think you at least still have to wait and see what happens with Drew Aller and Will Howard. Like, you still have to at least like have the lights to see. Even JJ McCarthy. I mean, you have to see. So I guarantee you, JJ McCarthy, the Vikings weren't the only team that thought they had something with JJ McCarthy. So if he is to become available, I guarantee you there will be someone to say like, hey, we had a high grade on him. We can make this happen. We'll give him another shot here too. So I mean, that's how you have to play a dynasty, right? With these guys, and who knows? I guarantee you, we see Carson Beck start games this year. I feel pretty good about Clay Klubnik starting at some point. I just don't think the Jets will win enough games, and they have a very late bye this year, so there's like a clear onboarding where like they could just give Klubnik like the final month of the year, which is scary for like our managed league bags if like you have Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson like at that point of the year. And I do think Geno,
well with Beck.
Yeah, and I think Geno's going to actually be fine in terms of like keeping all those guys afloat. It's just if they're staring down the gun barrel of having, to look at this 2027 QB class, they at least have to see what Klubnik offers. Like they at least have to. So that's why I say at the end of the year, both those teams having the late buys is actually problematic, I think, for fantasy gamers.
Yeah, because it gives them just that easy transition to go ahead and move the other guy up. Yeah, because I mean, Geno and Jacoby could do what at least Jacoby did last year, but that team was 1-9. They were already on their back. Like if Jacoby and Kyler's roles were reversed, they probably would have just gone to Kyler at some point later in the season because of how bad the team was doing while Jacoby was under center. I have a secret. No one air this out, but Reeves, I still believe in Will Levis, man.
Oh, nice. Hey, there's another wild. I would say Will Levis represents it maybe more than Anthony Richardson, at least more hope, because while being a bad passer, it is not quite Tim Tebow level of bad passing.
God, I was rewatching some of his just like more batshit crazy moments, trying to hurdle dudes in the middle of the field, like lowering his head, like just welcoming later career CTE to Jalen Ramsey in that wild Dolphins game. Will Levis, guys, I know the really bad memes were out there, but there were actually some high highs. It would be fun to see him get another situation. Last backup that I've been looking at was Tanner McKee. I'm just so confused what the Eagles are doing. I feel like a trade needs to come because when they brought in Andy Dalton, I just assumed that was going to mean they were going to trade McKee. Hasn't been the case yet. And then they brought in Cole Payton to be their developmental guy. Like, I don't think they're going to carry 4 quarterbacks. Do you have any level of read of what's going on there?
Yeah, me neither. The trade for Cole or the trade for Andy Dalton paired with the
Red
Cole
Rocket.
Payton was it's very weird. And to be fair to the Eagles, like the way they draft, they might have just had Cole Payton high on their board because like they just will always grab value when they see it.
Yeah.
So maybe that was just a who cares? Like we're gonna take the best player available, but. Another player we didn't even really talk about, Hurts, really, but he's also. It feels odd to have a guy that's been to 2 Super Bowls at this point in his career and win one, and that kind of have like be like a fulcrum point of his career too.
Yeah.
Like they're because what kind of real restrictions is there paired on like these offensive coordinators that they keep cycling through every year? Like how much is it? Do we start to look now at the common denominator, right? Of why the offense isn't making growth and doing some of these things. That's Jalen Hurts, a very intriguing guy too. This year, the new play caller again. We don't really know what Sean Mannion is going to bring to the table. Still has a lot of surrounding talent. Like, is he going to run more? But yeah, another interesting guy.
And look, Hurts has been incredible in 2 Super Bowls. I just think when you win a Super Bowl, all the mainstream and, real football media, if you will, they got to do that. Well, is he actually a top 5 quarterback? And
I
no,
know.
Jalen Hurts is not a top 5 real life quarterback. That doesn't mean he's a bottom 5 quarterback.
Correct.
Guys. He has done some really good things in his career. But I hear you, man. I think I sent out a tweet one time saying like Bryce Young and low-key Jalen Hurts, 2 of these quarterbacks in pretty big make or break years. Because I don't think it would surprise people if we did see this Eagles team struggle. Let's say they go 6-11, which I don't think they'll do that. But if it happened, Nick Sirianni, I feel like even though he got that Super Bowl, doesn't have the longest leash of any NFL coach out there. So again, you kind of mentioned with Lamar, like he got the benefit of the doubt. They changed coaches and everything. It's still Lamar Jackson. Okay, he's our guy. But if you are getting that changing head coach, at least a question to wonder about with Jalen Hurts. Reeves, we covered a bunch of player takes. I love it. I love you. That said, you're going to a general draft. Over the years, what has been your overall strategy that you've done more times than not at quarterback, whether it is the late round method, whether it's more of a middle round, go get your guy? And do you anticipate continuing to do that in 2026?
Yeah, 100%. I've always been someone that tends to wait and just like, where's the lowest starting quarterback that I feel confident to start the year with, and using that as a firewall, and then just seeing if someone slides, right? So like this year, the guy I'm waiting to see if I can catch at value is Justin Herbert, like we talked about. If someone else in my league is also really high on Mike McDaniel going to the Chargers and they take Justin Herbert, so be it. I have a backup plan. And like I said, like then we're looking at guys like Brock Purdy and like Jared Goff. And then if you go really down the line, like we brought up Baker Mayfield, just guys I think are undervalued. Kyler Murray too, right? Like at that point where it's like I can open the year with these guys, and if they're bad, it didn't really cost me much. And in one quarterback leagues, you're always going to have options, particularly when it comes to pocket passers that are going to be available that you can at least get back in the stream with and you can play matchups with. But I don't foresee it really changing this year. And it's just because like I brought up earlier, like that pocket of wide receivers, like that wide receiver, like 18 to 20 range, where we know this year you got to get on board. If you want running backs, you better get on them early because they're going to be gone. And then really wanting to hammer wide receivers and like that wide receiver, like 3 or that round 3 to 7 range. I just want to be adding a lot of wide receivers. That's the part I feel like is the strongest. I would have had a bunch of those guys in my rosters because there'll be misses too. So I want to have more bites at the apple. So then we're coming back and we're taking those quarterbacks right around there. So that's where I foresee myself trying to play it this year, is basically through like Herbert, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, then Baker Mayfield, Kyler.
Love it. Think we're on the same page. What could go wrong there? For Superflex formats, personally, what I've kind of evolved to over the years, every now and then you try to weigh its position and you end up with freaking 3 dudes that you don't even want to show anyone, your fantasy team at that point in time. So what I've kind of tried to do is in round 1, look, if I can get my Lamar, Josh, Daniels, Maye, Herbert even, okay. And then maybe spend round 2, spend round 3 waiting, and don't, because what you talked about earlier, we're like, well, if you take Lamar and then 4 rounds go past before the other guy happens, The worst thing is in Superflex when you take the round 2 quarterback and you just watch pick after pick after pick and no one else is taking a quarterback. So how do you kind of try to generally handle Superflex drafts?
The first thing I always tell everyone when I get a Superflex question is, you know your league better than I do, like the people you've been drafting with. So like you probably have a good gauge of like, hey, this guy always will take 2 quarterbacks early, or like, you know, this gamer will always wait on QB. So you'll always have a better pulse of like when those like mid-rangey QBs come off the board, because in some Superflex leagues, like you said, they won't. Like once the top tier's gone, like teams will wait. I always tell people this, though. The best top-down advice I would be is like, if you don't have a high-end pick in your draft and you don't get like a Josh Allen, like one of those tier 1 guys, and you pick at the back third, you don't want to be chasing the same roster construction those other teams that picked ahead of you did, because they're already ahead of you at the position. So like, you're not going to flag down the Josh Allen drafter by taking Dak Prescott at pick 10. Right? Like you're just not. So that's when you pivot, I think, is if you're picking at the back, and you have to build your team in a different way. Because it's the only way you're going to be able to combat them is to get leverage of saying like, all right, well now I'm going to get back-to-back running backs, right? While they took their quarterback, because I can't let them have one of these running backs back to them. Can't let them have Josh Allen and one of these guys. So you have to have a different roster construction. You can't chase the roster construction that other teams have already had a head up on you building. So that's the biggest advice to give to gamers, because a lot of times people will be picking at like 9, 10, 11, 12 in these Superflex leagues, and they'll be like, oh my God, 6 quarterbacks went. Like, I have to get one. Or don't, because you're just going to be chasing. And I understand it's not comfortable, like you said. Like, you might end up having 3 guys that you don't feel the most comfortable with, but your other strength of your roster is going to be better than those teams, that you have to hope that works out. The other thing too that I'll say is, you can also come back and usually get those mid-range guys if you do know your league. Like all those guys that we talked about, you might be able to do 2 running backs that you feel really strongly about, because they're going to go lower in these leagues inherently, and be able to come back and double tap from those spots at those turns. And you might be able to do like Purdy plus Goff or Purdy plus Kyler and those things. And now you've got 2 great running backs, and you still have solid quarterback play. But don't get caught into the tidal wave. Like I said, the riptide. Don't get pulled in there by the undertow will get you, man.
Firewall, riptide. Absolutely love some of these analogies, Reeves. So great stuff all around, man. However, did want to end things. We're done talking quarterbacks, but I'm not done talking to you, because I don't know if everyone knows this, but you are a critically renowned, formerly highly ranked Madden player. I know you're on the sticks as much these days, but you have given me some stories, man, about going to B-dubs back in the day over on Ohio State campus and just taking dudes down. So talk a little bit about the Madden career, man. Then if you have like a funny story from back in the day you want to share, go right ahead.
Yes, largely before like all the online gaming, and now it's funny as you try to play like Madden online, like you better be like caught up with the meta, right? Like people have basically they break the game, you break the game, and you better be running the meta offense, and you better be finding like what route combinations you can put on the field to blow past these coverages that the Madden doesn't know how to set properly. But when early in my post high school 2000 days, and we were doing dumb shit in college, I used to travel around and play in the Madden Bowls, and then we had a local place. I lived in Columbus, which is where you are now, and there was a B-dubs and High Street used to run Madden tournaments every night, and they used to run prizes. They used to show up and play as NFL Europe teams and just like beat the shit out of people and like just get the prizes and like
the Echo, that Rhino team or whatever.
But yeah, it used to travel. The Madden Bowl used to be great because it used to travel around each city to city, and they would be in the actual NFL stadiums is where they would do the Madden Bowls. So like, being in Ohio obviously is great because you have the 2 teams. If you got to go to Cleveland, you got to go to Cincinnati, but you're close enough to get to Detroit, you're close enough to get to Philadelphia, and go to these other cities, Chicago if you want, and go participate. So I used to travel all around and play in these tournaments, have buddies, and it was a lot of fun, man. Now, I mean, my son's better than me now. Like I just don't have the time and the to put into like the meta and play as many hours as it takes to be like awesome and lab some stuff. But fun times, and I always look back on that and say like, hey, that was really good, man.
I was watching Rounders the other night, old poker movie with Ed Norton and Matt Damon, and I'm just imagining you not finding like seedy poker games to go make some money, but just absolutely making life miserable for some 18-year-olds trying to play some Madden. So amazing stuff, Reeves. Again, you're over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. You and Warren Sharp just holding down the freaking advanced analytics for real life and fantasy football industries. What do you guys got going on over there right now?
Well, this week I'm back after 4th of July, so it's all downhill. I'm doing a different series for the draft kit every single week up until kickoff. my first thing I lead off always is like all of my big player tiers. I had running backs go up. You can check that out at the site. It's literally just like a one-stop shop, like player almanac, like the deepest dive. So if we didn't talk about a quarterback that you wish you had my opinion on, or go check out that stuff on the site. If anyone's listening to this still at this point and they want to throw a little promo code, you can do Fantasy 10 and take 10% off anything at the site there.
Of course, Reeves, you've been writing the worksheet for a freaking decade at this point. Every single player, every single week. What a grinder. So appreciate you, Reeves. Again, Lord Reeves, you guys already know who he freaking is. But if not, you do now. One of the best there is at balls. So appreciate you guys tuning in as always. For Mr. Reeves, I'm Ian. Until next time, take care, everybody.